Commander Jake Martinez sat in his chair at the Lunar Communication Array, drinking his third cup of coffee that morning. The moon base was quiet as always, with only the soft hum of machines breaking the silence. Jake had been running this station for 5 years now, and most days were the same. They listened for signals from Earth, tracked space junk, and helped guide ships around the solar system. But today was different. The computers started beeping at exactly 0900 hours. Jake looked at his screens and saw something strange. A signal was coming from deep space, farther than any human had ever traveled. The reading showed it came from the direction of Kepler 442, a star system over 1,000 light-years away. "Lisa, get over here," Jake called to Dr. Lisa Thompson, who was working at her desk across the room. Lisa was the station's language expert. She could speak 12 Earth languages and had spent years studying how different cultures communicated. Lisa walked over and looked at Jake's screen. Her eyes went wide when she saw the signal patterns. "This isn't from any of our ships," she said quietly. "The frequency is all wrong. And look at these patterns. They're too complex to be natural." Jake felt his heart beat faster. "You mean this could be from aliens?" "Maybe," Lisa said, sitting down at the computer next to Jake. "Let me run this through the translation programs." Her fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. The computers worked hard to break down the strange signal, looking for patterns that might mean something. Hours passed. Jake brought Lisa more coffee and watched her work. The signal kept coming, repeating the same message over and over. Lisa wrote notes and drew diagrams, trying to understand what the aliens might be saying. Finally, at 3 in the afternoon, Lisa sat back in her chair. Her face was pale. "Jake, I think I've got it," she said. "What does it say?" Jake asked. Lisa looked at her notes. "It's a distress call. Someone is asking for help." She pointed to her computer screen. "They call themselves the Velthari. They say their world is under attack by something called the Krex Empire. Their shields are failing, and their people are dying." Jake stared at the translation. "How sure are you about this?" "Pretty sure," Lisa said. "The math checks out. The signal is definitely artificial, and the patterns match what we'd expect from a language. Plus, it's repeating every 6 hours, which is what you'd do if you were sending an emergency message." Jake picked up his phone and called Earth. Within an hour, he was talking to Admiral Susan Wright at Space Command headquarters in Colorado. Jake explained what they had found. "Let me get this straight," Admiral Wright said over the video link. "You're telling me that aliens are calling for help and somehow their message reached us?" "Yes, ma'am," Jake said. "Dr. Thompson is confident in her translation. The Velthari are being attacked by another alien race called the Krex Empire. They're asking anyone who receives their message to help them." Admiral Wright was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her thinking hard about what this meant. Finally, she spoke. "This changes everything, Commander. If there are aliens out there and they're in trouble, we need to decide what to do about it." Over the next few days, Jake and Lisa worked around the clock to learn more about the signal. They discovered that the message contained star charts showing the location of the Velthari homeworld. The aliens had even included basic information about their planet's size, gravity, and atmosphere. "They're really desperate," Lisa said, showing Jake the latest translations. "Listen to this part. We have sent this message to every star that might have life. We know the chances are small that anyone will hear us, but we have no other choice. Our children are hiding in caves while our cities burn. Please, if anyone receives this, we beg you to help us." Jake felt a knot in his stomach. These aliens were facing the same kind of fear that humans had felt throughout history when stronger enemies attacked them. The difference was that the Velthari had no one to turn to except the hope that someone, somewhere in the galaxy, might hear their cry for help. Captain Ryan Brooks arrived at the lunar station 3 days later. He was a tall man with gray hair and serious eyes. Jake had heard stories about Captain Brooks. He had commanded ships in the asteroid mining fleets and had a reputation for being calm under pressure. "Commander Martinez," Captain Brooks said as he shook Jake's hand, "I've read your reports. Tell me everything you know about these aliens." Jake and Lisa spent 2 hours explaining what they had learned. Captain Brooks listened carefully, asking questions about the signal's origin and the alien situation. "So let me understand," Captain Brooks said finally. "These Velthari people are being conquered by the Krex Empire. They're outgunned and running out of time. They sent a message into space hoping someone would help them, and we're the ones who heard it." "That's right," Jake said. Captain Brooks stood up and looked out the window at Earth, which appeared as a blue and white marble in the black sky. "And they have no idea who we are or what we're capable of." "No, sir," Lisa said. "As far as we can tell, they've never heard of humans before. They're just sending their message to every star system, hoping someone will answer." Captain Brooks nodded slowly. "Well then, I guess we'd better answer them." Back on Earth, the government was in emergency meetings. President Nancy Coleman had called together her top advisors to discuss humanity's first contact with alien life. The situation was complicated because the aliens weren't asking to meet humans. They were asking humans to fight a war. Dr. Amanda Foster sat in one of those meetings, listening to politicians argue about what to do. Amanda was a military doctor who had served in combat zones around the world. She had volunteered for the new space program because she believed humans would eventually need medical help among the stars. "We can't just ignore this," General Paul Davis said to the room. "These people are dying and they asked for help. What kind of species would we be if we turned our backs on them?" "But we don't know anything about galactic politics," Secretary of State Karen Murphy replied. "What if helping the Velthari makes enemies of this Krex Empire? What if there are other alien races that don't want us to get involved?" Amanda spoke, up from her seat. "With respect, ma'am, but those are problems we can deal with later. Right now there are people dying who asked for our help. As a doctor, I took an oath to help anyone who needs medical care. I think humanity should live by the same principle." Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker, who was sitting across from Amanda, nodded in agreement. "The doctor's right. We can worry about politics after we've saved some lives." President Coleman looked around the room at her advisors. "How quickly can we put together a mission to help these aliens?" Captain Brooks, who had flown down from the moon base, answered, "The UES Liberty is our most advanced ship. She's got experimental jump drives that can cross interstellar distances. With the right crew and supplies, we could be ready to leave in 2 weeks." "And how do we know our technology will work against this Krex Empire?" the president asked. "We don't," Captain Brooks admitted. "But from what we can tell from the alien messages, the Krex use energy weapons and have faster-than-light travel. Our weapons and defenses should be able to handle anything they can throw at us. What none of the humans in that room knew was that their technology was far more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever seen. They also didn't know that Earth was classified by other alien races as a Class 12 death world, a planet so dangerous that intelligent life couldn't possibly survive there. The galaxy was about to learn that humans had not only survived on their deadly world, but had turned its challenges into strengths that no other species could match. The UES Liberty dropped out of jump space with a flash of blue light. Captain Ryan Brooks stood on the bridge, looking at the main screen as stars shifted back into normal patterns. After 2 weeks of traveling through the strange realm between dimensions, they had finally arrived at the Kepler 442 system. "Jump drive shutdown complete, sir," Chief Engineer Maria Santos reported from her station. "All systems are running normally." "Good work, Chief," Captain Brooks said. He turned to his navigation officer. "What do we see out there?" Lieutenant Ben Carter worked at his controls, scanning the space around them. His face went pale as the sensors brought back information. "Captain, you need to see this." The main screen changed to show the Velthari system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go quiet. 3 large planets orbited the system's star, but one of them was clearly dying. Velthar Prime, the aliens' homeworld, was covered in dark smoke clouds. Bright flashes of light could be seen from orbit as weapons, fired down at the planet's surface. "My God," Dr. Amanda Foster whispered from her position near the medical station. "They're bombing the entire planet." Captain Brooks counted the enemy ships on his screen. 12 large warships and maybe 30 smaller ones. They've got the planet completely surrounded. "Captain," came a voice from the communication station. "I'm picking up the Velthari distress signal. It's much stronger now. They're still calling for help. Can you contact them directly? Captain Brooks asked. Working on it, sir. The communications officer, Ensign Kelly Adams, worked at her controls for several minutes. Finally, she looked up. I've got them, Captain. There's someone who wants to talk to you. The main screen changed again. This time, it showed the face of an alien unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The being had large, dark eyes that took up most of its face. Its skin was pale blue and looked very thin. When it spoke, its voice was soft and musical. Unknown vessel, the alien said. This is Elder Zephyr of the Velthari Council. Are you here to help us? Captain Brooks stepped forward. Elder Zephyr, this is Captain Ryan Brooks of the human starship Liberty. We received your distress call. We're here to help. The alien's large eyes grew even wider. Human? Elder Zephyr said the word carefully, as if he had never heard it before. What is a human? We're from a planet called Earth, Captain Brooks explained. We heard your message asking for help, so we came. Elder Zephyr was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, again his voice shook with emotion. You traveled between the stars to help people you have never met? Of course, Captain Brooks said. That's what neighbors do. Dr. Foster moved closer to the screen, studying the alien's appearance. As a doctor, she could see that Elder Zephyr was not in good health. His breathing was shallow and his skin looked pale even for his species. Elder Zephyr, Dr. Foster said, are you injured? You look like you need medical attention. The alien looked at her with surprise. You are concerned about my health, but you do not even know what I am. You're a person. Who needs help? Dr. Foster said simply. That's all I need to know. Elder Zephyr seemed amazed by this response. The Kreks have been attacking our world for 6 months. Most of our cities are gone. Our people hide in underground shelters and mountain caves. We have perhaps a few thousand survivors left. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker had been listening quietly from his position near the tactical station. Now he spoke up. What kind of weapons do the Kreks use? Energy beams that can destroy buildings, Elder Zephyr replied. Flying machines that drop explosive devices, ground vehicles with heavy armor. He paused. Their technology is much more advanced than ours. We never learned to make weapons of war. Parker looked at Captain Brooks. Sounds like standard military equipment, nothing we can't handle. What Parker didn't know was that by galactic standards, the Kreks Empire had some of the most advanced military technology in known space. Their energy weapons could destroy most alien starships with a single hit. Their armor was strong enough to resist the weapons of dozens of other species. How many Kreks are there? Captain Brooks asked. The fleet attacking us has maybe 2,000 soldiers, Elder Zephyr said, but they are part of a much larger empire. If you fight them here, more will come. Let us worry about that, Parker said. Right now, we need to get your people to safety. Before Elder Zephyr could respond, alarms started ringing on the Liberty's bridge. Ensign Adams looked up from her station with worry. Captain, we're being scanned by the Kreks fleet. 3 of their ships are moving toward us. Red alert, Captain Brooks ordered. All hands to battle stations. The main screen showed 3 Kreks warships approaching. They were large, dark vessels with sharp edges and weapon ports along their sides. As they got closer, a new voice came over the communication system. Unknown vessel. The voice was deep and harsh. You are in Kreks territory. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed. Captain Brooks straightened his uniform and faced the screen. This is Captain Brooks of the UES Liberty. We are here on a humanitarian mission. We demand that you stop your attack on the Velthari people. The Kreks commander appeared on screen. He was tall and thin with gray skin and sharp teeth. His eyes were small and mean. I am Admiral Vex of the Kreks 3rd Fleet. You will surrender your vessel now, or we will take it by force. I don't think so, Captain Brooks said calmly. Admiral Vex looked confused. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever refused his demands. Most aliens surrendered as soon as they saw a Kreks warship. You do not understand, Admiral Vex said slowly. We are the Krex Empire. We have conquered 40 star systems. You cannot resist us. We'll see about that, Lieutenant Colonel Parker said from his station. Admiral Vex stared at the humans on his screen. These strange beings seemed completely unafraid of his fleet. Their calm confidence was something he had never seen before. What are you? He asked. We're humans, Captain Brooks said, and we don't like bullies. The Krex ships opened fire. Bright beams of energy shot across space toward the Liberty. The human ship's shields flared as the weapons hit, but held firm. Shields at 80%, Chief Santos reported. No damage. Captain Brooks looked at his tactical officer. Return fire. The Liberty's weapons fired back. The human ship used kinetic projectiles, metal slugs fired at incredible speed. When they hit the lead Krex ship, the results were devastating. The alien vessel's shields collapsed instantly and huge holes appeared in its hull. What? Admiral Vex shouted as his ship shook around him. How did they penetrate our shield so easily? On the Liberty's bridge, Parker looked puzzled. That's strange. Their shields went down after just one hit. Are they having technical problems? What Parker didn't understand was that no species in the galaxy had ever developed kinetic weapons like humans used. Most aliens fought with energy beams because metal projectiles were considered primitive and ineffective. The Krex shields were designed to stop energy attacks, not solid objects moving at high speed. The second Krex ship tried to ram the Liberty. Captain Brooks ordered evasive maneuvers, and the human ship moved away from the attack with surprising speed. The Krex pilot couldn't believe how quickly the human vessel could change direction. Their ship moves like a fighter, not a cruiser, the Krex pilot reported to Admiral Vex. How are they so fast? Dr. Foster watched the battle from her medical station. She saw the Krex ships moving in predictable patterns, telegraphing their attacks well in advance. To her human eyes, their tactics looked clumsy and obvious. They're not very good at this, she commented to Maria Santos. No kidding, Santos replied. It's like they've never fought anyone who could fight back. The third Krex ship launched a spread of missiles at the Liberty. The human ship's defensive systems shot down most of them, and the few that got through barely scratched the shields. Captain, Parker said, looking at his tactical display. These guys are using really old-fashioned tactics. It's like they expect us to just sit still and let them shoot us. What the humans didn't know was that most galactic species did exactly that. When faced with superior firepower, they would try to negotiate or surrender. The concept of fighting back against overwhelming odds was almost unknown in the galaxy. Admiral Vex watched in growing panic as his 3 ships were outmaneuvered and outgunned by a single human vessel. In 10 minutes of combat, he had lost 1 ship completely and the other 2 were badly damaged. Retreat, he ordered. All ships, return to the main fleet. As the Krex ships limped away, Elder Zephyr appeared on the Liberty's screen again. His large eyes were filled with wonder and something that might have been hope. How did you do that? He asked in amazement. 3 Krex warships retreated from a single vessel. In 6 months of fighting, we have never seen them retreat. Captain Brooks looked uncomfortable with the aliens' praise. We just defended ourselves. It wasn't anything special. But Elder Zephyr knew it was very special indeed. In that moment, he realized that his people's desperate call for help had been answered by beings unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. News of the battle at Velthar Prime spread through the Krex communication network like wildfire. Within hours, reports reached the Galactic Council, a group of alien species that tried to keep peace among the stars. In the council chambers on the planet Nexus Prime, representatives from dozens of worlds gathered for an emergency meeting. Dr. Kryn, a tall, insect-like being from the planet Zephyros, stood at the center of the Great Hall. As the Council's chief scientist, he had studied life throughout the galaxy for over 200 years. Today, his usually calm voice shook with excitement and fear. Fellow Council members, Dr. Kryn began, we have received reports that cannot be true, yet multiple sources confirm them. A single vessel from an unknown species has defeated 3 Krex warships in direct combat. The hall filled with worried voices. Council members spoke in dozens of different languages, all expressing the same disbelief. The Krex Empire was one of the strongest military forces in known space. No one fought the Krex and won. Ambassador Theron of the Aquatic Worlds raised one of her webbed hands. Dr. Kryn, where did this mysterious vessel come from? That is the most disturbing part, Dr. Kryn replied. He touched a control pad, and a star map appeared above the council chamber. A red dot marked a distant corner of the galaxy. The ship came from the Sol system, in what we call the Forbidden Zone. A wave of fear swept through the chamber. Every species in the galaxy knew about the Forbidden Zone. It was an area of space filled with systems too dangerous for intelligent life to exist. The planets there were classified as Deathworlds, where conditions were so harsh that evolution could never produce thinking beings. That's impossible, said Representative Nala from the Crystal Spheres. Sol 3 is rated as a Class 12 Deathworld. Nothing could live there. Dr. Kryn brought up more information on his display. According to our records, Sol 3 has crushing gravity that would flatten most species. Its atmosphere contains poisonous gases. The planet is struck by massive storms that would destroy our cities. It has deadly radiation from its star. Most terrifying of all, it is filled with aggressive predators that hunt and kill other creatures for food. The council members looked at each other with growing horror. If beings could survive and develop technology on such a world, what kind of monsters must they be? But there's more, Dr. Kryn continued. I have analyzed the weapons used by this vessel. They were kinetic projectiles, metal objects fired at high speed. This is the most primitive form of warfare imaginable. Primitive? Ambassador Theron asked, confused. But they defeated Krex shields with these weapons. That is what makes it so terrifying, Dr. Kryn explained. Our shields are designed to stop energy beams, not solid objects. These beings solve the problem of our most advanced defenses by using the oldest weapon technology possible. They think in ways we cannot understand. Meanwhile, on Velthar Prime, Captain Brooks was learning more about the people they had come to help. The Liberty had moved into orbit around the planet, and shuttles were flying down to evacuate Velthari survivors. Dr. Amanda Foster sat in the medical bay, treating a group of Velthari refugees who had been brought up from the planet's surface. She was amazed by how different they were from humans. The aliens were much smaller and lighter than people from Earth. Their bones were thin and their muscles were weak compared to humans. Elder Zephyr, Dr. Foster said as she checked the alien leader's health. Can you tell me about your homeworld? Elder Zephyr lay on the medical bed, still weak from months of hiding in caves. Velthar Prime is a gentle world, he said softly. The gravity is light, so we can jump great distances. The weather is always mild. We never had dangerous animals or natural disasters. We thought all worlds were like ours. Dr. Foster nodded as she worked. From what she could see, the Velthari had evolved on an easy world where survival was never a challenge. They were intelligent and had built beautiful cities, but they had never needed to become strong or aggressive. What about your medical knowledge? Dr. Foster asked. How do you treat injuries? We rarely have injuries, Elder Zephyr replied. Our people are careful and our world is safe. When someone is hurt, they rest until their body heals naturally. It usually takes many months. Dr. Foster was shocked. Many months? On Earth, we expect most injuries to heal in days or weeks. Elder Zephyr stared at her. Your people heal so quickly? How is this possible? We evolved on a dangerous world, Dr. Foster explained. Humans who couldn't heal fast didn't survive long enough to have children. Over millions of years, we became very good at recovering from damage. Down on the planet's surface, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was leading rescue operations in the ruins of a Velthari city. The buildings were beautiful but fragile, made from materials that looked like crystal and light metals. Krex weapons had easily destroyed most of them. Sergeant Danny Lee and his squad were searching through the rubble for survivors. They moved quickly through areas that the Velthari said were too dangerous to enter. To human eyes, the dangerous zones just looked like regular disaster areas. Sergeant? Called Private Kate Nelson from inside a collapsed building. I found a family trapped under here. Danny moved over to help. The Velthari family was pinned under a beam that had fallen from the ceiling. To the aliens, the beam was impossibly heavy. Danny grabbed it with both hands and lifted it off them without much effort. The rescued Velthari stared at Danny in amazement. "How did you move that?" the father asked. "It would take 10 of our people to lift such a weight." Danny looked confused. "It wasn't that heavy, maybe 100 pounds. What Danny didn't understand was that the crushing gravity on Velthar Prime was actually much lighter than Earth's gravity. The beam that seemed heavy to the Velthari would have been considered light by human standards even on Earth. In the reduced gravity of the alien world, Danny was much stronger than he realized. Back in space, Admiral Vex was reporting to his superior, General Thack, the overall commander of Krex forces in this sector. General Thack was known throughout the Empire as their greatest military mind, a warrior who had conquered more worlds than any other Krex officer. "You're telling me that one ship defeated 3 of your vessels?" General Thack asked over the communication link. His voice was cold and angry. "Yes, General," Admiral Vex replied, trying not to show his fear. "These humans fight like nothing we have ever seen. They use weapons that ignore our shields. They move their ship in impossible ways. They show no fear, even when outnumbered." General Thack was quiet for a moment. "Humans. I have never heard of this species. Where do they come from?" "Our intelligence officers are investigating," Admiral Vex said. "Early reports suggest they come from a system in the Forbidden Zone." This got General Thack's attention. "The Forbidden Zone? That's impossible. Nothing lives in those systems." "Yet they are here, General, and they are protecting the Velthari." "General," Thack made his decision. "I am coming to your location with the full Second Armada, 60 ships and 20,000 soldiers. We will crush these humans and complete our conquest of the Velthari." "Do you think that will be enough?" Admiral Vex asked nervously. "Admiral," General Thack said with confidence, "I have never lost a battle. I will not start now." On the Liberty, Chief Engineer Maria Santos was working in the engine room, making repairs from the earlier battle. The Krex weapons had barely damaged the human ship, but Santos wanted everything running perfectly. As she worked, she noticed that the environmental systems were working harder than usual. "Computer, why are the air scrubbers running at maximum power?" she asked. "Atmospheric composition in Cargo Bay 3 has changed due to presence of Velthari refugees," the computer replied. "Alien biochemistry is producing compounds toxic to humans." Santos nodded and made some adjustments. This wasn't a big problem, just something to monitor. She didn't realize that her casual work in an environment that was poisonous to her species would become another legend among the aliens. Elder Zephyr had asked to visit the engine room to see human technology. When Dr. Foster brought him there, he was amazed to see Maria working normally in conditions that would have killed a Velthari in minutes. "She is working in a poisonous atmosphere," Elder Zephyr whispered to Dr. Foster. "How is she not dying?" Dr. Foster checked her readings. "The air is a little off, but it's not dangerous to humans. Maria's wearing a small filter mask, and the ship systems are cleaning the air." Elder Zephyr watched Maria lift heavy equipment and work with tools that would have been impossible for a Velthari to use. To him, she looked like a being of incredible strength, working in conditions that would be lethal to his people. "What kind of world creates people like you?" he asked in wonder. Dr. Foster thought about Earth, with its storms and earthquakes, its predators and diseases, its harsh environment that had shaped humanity over millions of years. "A world that taught us to be tough," she said simply. Elder Zephyr was beginning to understand that his people's prayer for help had been answered by beings beyond their imagination. The humans seemed so normal to themselves. But to Galactic eyes, they were something that shouldn't exist. Creatures from a nightmare world who had chosen to use their terrible abilities to help instead of harm. As news of the human intervention spread through the galaxy, other species began to take notice. General Thack arrived at Velthar Prime with the largest fleet the Krex Empire had ever assembled. 60 warships dropped out of jump space in perfect formation, their dark hulls blocking out the stars. Behind them came 20 transport ships carrying soldiers, and heavy weapons. This was enough firepower to destroy entire star systems. On the bridge of his flagship, the Destroyer of Worlds, General Thak studied the tactical display. He could see the single human ship orbiting the planet below, still helping evacuate Velthari survivors. The sight made him angry. No species had ever dared to interfere with Krek's conquest before. Communications officer, General Thak ordered, send a message to the human vessel. Tell them they have one chance to surrender before I destroy them. The message went out across space. On the Liberty, Captain Brooks received the ultimatum with calm interest. He looked at the massive Krex fleet on his screens and felt no fear, only determination to protect the innocent people they were helping. Lieutenant Colonel Parker, Captain Brooks said, "What's your assessment of the enemy force?" Parker studied the tactical display for several minutes. 60 ships, probably about 1,000 crew each. Their formation is tight but predictable. They're using standard intimidation tactics, trying to scare us with numbers. He paused. Honestly, sir, they're making the same mistakes as the first group. No creativity in their approach. What Parker didn't know was that the Krex formation was considered the most advanced military strategy in galactic history. No species had ever been able to break through their coordinated attacks. The formation had conquered 40 star systems without a single defeat. Send a reply, Captain Brooks told his communications officer. Tell General Thak that we're here on a humanitarian mission and we won't abandon the people who need our help. When General Thak received the human response, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. They refused to surrender? One ship against 60? He turned to his tactical officer. Are they insane? Perhaps they don't understand our power, General, the officer suggested. Then we will show them, General Thak said coldly. All ships attack formation, destroy the human vessel. The Krex fleet moved forward like a dark cloud of death. Energy weapons charged and missile tubes loaded. General Thak expected the battle to last only minutes. No single ship could stand against such overwhelming force. But just as the attack was about to begin, new contacts appeared on both fleets' sensors. 3 more human ships dropped out of jump space near the Liberty. Admiral Chen Wei had arrived, with reinforcements. Captain Brooks. Admiral Chen's voice came over the communication system. Sorry we're late. Hope we didn't miss the party. Captain Brooks smiled for the first time in days. Admiral, your timing is perfect. We have about 60 Krex ships that need to learn some manners. Admiral Chen brought the heavy cruiser Washington, the destroyer, Atlanta, and the supply ship Dakota. To the humans, this was a small task force. To galactic observers, it represented more concentrated firepower than most civilizations could produce. General Thak stared at his tactical display in confusion. 4 ships? They think 4 ships can fight my entire armada? He was beginning to wonder if these humans were suffering from some kind of mental illness. The battle began when the Krex fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams shot across space toward the human ships. The humans scattered in different directions, their vessels moving with impossible speed and agility. How do they move like that? General Thak demanded as he watched the human ships dodge his weapons. Their acceleration should crush their crew. What General Thak didn't understand was that humans had evolved on a high-gravity world. The crushing forces that would kill most aliens were nothing to people who had grown up under Earth's heavy gravity. Human ships could pull maneuvers that would be lethal to other species. Admiral Chen's ships returned fire with their kinetic weapons. Metal projectiles struck Krex vessels with devastating results. Shields collapsed and hulls cracked open, venting atmosphere into space. Their weapons are penetrating our armor like it's made of paper, a Krex captain reported to General Thak. How is this possible? The answer was simple but terrifying. Human kinetic weapons were designed to work on Earth, where everything was built strong to survive the planet's harsh conditions. Against alien technology designed for gentler worlds, human weapons were incredibly destructive. Dr. Amanda Foster watched the battle from the Liberty's medical bay while treating more Velthari refugees. She noticed that the aliens were terrified by the sounds of combat, even though they were safe inside the human ship. It's okay, she told a young Velthari who was shaking with fear. Our ships are strong. You're safe here. The young alien looked at her with wonder. How can you be so calm? There is a great battle happening around us. Dr. Foster thought about this question. I guess humans are used to danger. We've been dealing with it our whole evolution. This is just another problem to solve. What Dr. Foster didn't realize was that her calm attitude during a massive space battle was being recorded by Velthari observers. The footage would later spread throughout the galaxy, showing a human healer tending to wounded aliens while warships exploded outside the windows. On the planet's surface, the battle had a different character. General Thak had sent ground forces to capture the remaining Velthari cities before the humans could evacuate everyone. Thousands of Krek soldiers landed in armored vehicles, expecting easy victories against primitive aliens. They didn't expect to run into Lieutenant Colonel Parker's Marines. Sergeant Danny Lee and his squad were protecting a group of Velthari families in the ruins of their capital city. When Krek's ground forces arrived, the aliens expected the humans to retreat or surrender like every other species they had conquered. Instead, the humans did something no galactic military manual had ever described. They attacked. Danny and his Marines moved through the rubble-filled streets with perfect coordination. They used the destroyed buildings as cover, setting up ambushes and flanking maneuvers that the Kreks had never seen before. What are they doing? A Krek's commander radioed to his superiors. They're advancing toward our positions instead of retreating. The Kreks had never fought an enemy that moved toward danger instead of away from it. Their tactics were built around the assumption that other species would try to minimize casualties and avoid direct confrontation. Private Kate Nelson found herself face-to-face with a Krek soldier in the ruins of a Velthari school. The alien was larger than her and carried a weapon that could destroy vehicles. But Kate had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado, where missing a shot could mean going hungry or being killed by bears. She moved with the quick reflexes of a predator species, dodging the Krek's weapon and closing the distance before the alien could react. The fight was over in seconds. How did you move so fast? The captured Krek soldier asked in amazement. Kate looked confused. Fast? I was being careful not to hurt you too badly. Back in space, General Thak's flagship was taking heavy damage. Human kinetic weapons had torn holes in its armor and disabled several weapon systems. The general himself was injured, something that had never happened in all his years of conquest. General, his tactical officer reported, we've lost 20 ships. Our ground forces are being pushed back by less than 100 human soldiers. Request permission to retreat. General Thak couldn't accept what he was hearing. Retreat? The Krek's empire does not retreat. But as he watched more of his ships explode under human weapons fire, General Thak began to understand that he was facing something beyond his experience. These humans fought like no species he had ever encountered. They showed no fear, used tactics that made no sense and somehow turned their primitive weapons into devastating tools of war. All ships, General Thak finally ordered, his voice heavy with defeat, withdraw from the system. The surviving Krek's vessels limped away into jump space, leaving behind the wreckage of what had once been the Empire's most powerful fleet. General Thak, the warrior who had never lost a battle, had been crushed by 4 human ships and a handful of Marines. On Velthar Prime, Elder Zephyr stood in the ruins of his capital city, watching human soldiers help Velthari families board evacuation shuttles. The beings who had answered his people's desperate prayer for help moved among the refugees with gentle care, their weapons put away now that the danger had passed. How do we thank you? Elder Zephyr asked Captain Brooks when the human officer came to check on the evacuation progress. Captain Brooks looked uncomfortable with the question. You don't need to thank us. We're just doing what's right. But Elder, Zephyr knew that what the humans had done was far more than just what's right. They had taken on an empire and won, not for conquest or glory, but simply because people needed help. As news of the battle spread through the galaxy, the impossible became reality. The Deathworld creatures were real. They were powerful beyond imagination, and they used that power to protect the weak instead of dominating them. The galaxy was about to learn what it meant to have humans as neighbors. 6 months after the Battle of Velthar Prime, The galaxy was a very different place. News of humanity's victory over the Krex Empire had spread to every inhabited world. For the first time in galactic history, a major military power had been defeated by beings from the mythical Deathworlds. Ambassador Helen Carter stood in the Great Hall of the Galactic Council on Nexus Prime, looking around at hundreds of alien representatives. As humanity's first official diplomat to the galaxy, she still felt amazed by the variety of life forms that had evolved among the stars. Some aliens looked like giant insects, others were covered in scales or fur, and a few seemed to be made of living crystal. What surprised Helen most was how nervous all these aliens seemed around her. When she walked through the halls, conversations stopped and beings moved out of her way. She was just a middle-aged woman from Chicago who had spent her career working in international relations on Earth. She had no idea that to galactic eyes she was a creature of legend. "The Council recognizes Ambassador Carter of the human species," announced Speaker Vel, a tall being with purple skin who led the council sessions. Helen stepped forward to address the assembly. "Thank you, Speaker Vel. I bring greetings from Earth and the human government. We're honored to join the galactic community." A murmur went through the crowd. Dr. Kryn, the council's chief scientist, raised one of his insect-like arms. "Ambassador Carter, may I ask about your planet's classification? Our records show that Sol 3 is rated as a Class 12 death world." Helen looked confused. "Death world? I'm not sure what you mean. Earth is just our home. It has some challenges, but billions of humans live there quite happily." This statement caused another wave of shocked whispers. Dr. Kryn's compound eyes grew wider. "Billions? There are billions of humans on a Class 12 death world?" "About 8 billion at last count," Helen replied. "Is that unusual?" Dr. Kryn nearly fell over. The total population of his own species, spread across 12 worlds, was only 3 million. The idea that billions of Death World creatures existed was beyond his comprehension. Ambassador Theron of the aquatic world spoke up. "Ambassador Carter, are all humans as capable as the ones who defeated the Krex Empire?" Helen thought about this question. "Well, the crew of our ships were military personnel, so they had special training. But any human could learn to do what they did, given enough time and education." The council chamber erupted in frightened chatter. The idea that every human was a potential super warrior was terrifying to beings who had never known serious conflict. Meanwhile, back at Velthar Prime, the reconstruction was going better than anyone had expected. Dr. Amanda Foster had established the galaxy's first interspecies medical facility, where human doctors worked alongside Velthari healers to care for refugees from across the sector. "Dr. Foster," called Dr. Nira, a young Velthari who had become Amanda's assistant, "we have incoming casualties from the Altair system." Amanda looked up from her medical reports. "What happened at Altair?" "Pirates attacked a civilian transport," Dr. Nira explained. "The human patrol ship UES Boston responded and drove them off, but there were injuries." Amanda nodded and began preparing the emergency medical bay. Over the past months, she had treated dozens of different alien species, learning how their biology worked and how to help them heal. What amazed her was how fragile most galactic life seemed compared to humans. The Altair refugees arrived an hour later. Amanda worked quickly to treat their injuries, which were mostly cuts and broken bones from the pirate attack. What would have been minor injuries to a human were serious trauma for these aliens, whose bodies had evolved on gentle worlds. "How do you work so fast?" asked Dr. Nira as she watched Amanda treat 3 patients in the time it would take most galactic healers to examine one. "Fast," Amanda replied, continuing to work. "This is normal speed for emergency medicine on Earth. When people are hurt, you help them as quickly as you can." Dr. Nira was amazed by this concept. On Velthar Prime, medical treatment was a slow, careful process that could take days for simple procedures. The idea of rapid emergency care was revolutionary. Across the galaxy, other human ships were responding to distress calls. Captain Lisa Park of the UES Denver had helped evacuate a mining colony threatened by solar flares. Commander Alex Turner of the UES Phoenix had rescued the crew of a disabled freight ship. Each time humans helped someone, the stories spread and grew. On Earth, President Nancy Coleman was meeting with her military advisors to discuss humanity's new role in galactic affairs. General Paul Davis showed her reports from across human space. "Madam President," General Davis said, "we're getting requests for help almost every day now. Pirates, natural disasters, hostile aliens, medical emergencies. Everyone seems to think humans can solve any problem." President Coleman looked through the reports. "Are we helping them?" "Yes, ma'am. Every ship captain has standing orders to assist anyone who needs help. It's what we've always done." What President Coleman didn't know was that this simple policy of helping those in need was reshaping galactic civilization. For the first time in their history, weaker species had protectors they could call on when stronger enemies threatened them. Chief Engineer Maria Santos was working on Velthar Prime, helping to rebuild the planet's cities with new technology that combined human engineering with Velthari design. The aliens were amazed by human construction methods which seemed impossibly fast and strong by galactic standards. Maria called Engineer Keth, a Velthari who worked with her team. "How do you build structures that can survive earthquakes and storms?" Maria looked up from the building plans she was reviewing. "Well, on Earth we have to deal with natural disasters all the time. Earthquakes, hurricanes, floods, volcanic eruptions. We learn to build things that can survive anything nature throws at them." Keth stared at her in horror. "Your world has all of those disasters? How does anyone survive?" "You adapt," Maria said simply. "Humans are good at adapting." The new cities they were building incorporated this human philosophy. Structures that could withstand attacks, power systems that kept working during emergencies, and transportation networks that could function even when damaged. To the Velthari, these seemed like miraculous technologies. Elder Zephyr spent his days working with Captain Brooks to establish new communication networks across the sector. They were creating a system that would let threatened worlds call for help more quickly. "Captain Brooks," Elder Zephyr said as they reviewed the communication protocols, "I must ask you something. Why do humans help so many strangers? What do you gain from it?" Captain Brooks thought about this question for a moment. "I guess it's just who we are. On Earth, we learned that helping each other was the only way to survive. When we see people in trouble, we want to help them." Elder Zephyr was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "My people sent out our distress call expecting nothing. We thought we would die alone and forgotten. Instead, we found beings who traveled across the galaxy to save people they had never met. You have given us more than our lives. You have given us hope." As the months passed, the Krex Empire began to fall apart. Without their military might to hold their territory together, conquered worlds started declaring independence. General Thak, the once great warrior, had become a broken leader whose defeat by humans had destroyed his people's confidence. But the most important change was happening quietly across the galaxy. Species that had lived in fear for generations were starting to believe that they didn't have to be victims anymore. When pirates attacked, they called for human help. When disasters struck, they knew Earth's children would come. Lieutenant Colonel Steve Parker was training alien security forces on a dozen different worlds, teaching them that they could fight back against bullies. His methods were considered revolutionary by galactic standards, but to Parker they were just basic self-defense. "Remember," Parker told a group of Centauri guards during a training session, "you don't have to be the strongest to win a fight. You just have to be smarter and more determined than your opponent." The guards practiced human fighting techniques that seemed impossible to other species. The idea of advancing toward danger instead of retreating from it was changing how galactic civilization thought about conflict. Dr. Lisa Thompson, the linguist who had first translated the Velthari distress call, was now leading efforts to create a universal translation system for the galaxy. Her work was helping different species communicate and cooperate like never before. "We're building something new," she told Captain Brooks during one of their regular meetings. "Not just a communication network, but a community. Species are starting to work together instead of hiding from each other." Captain Brooks looked out at the stars from his ship's observation deck. Maybe that's what the galaxy needed. Not conquerors, but neighbors. As the first year of human galactic presence came to an end, Elder Zephyr made a final entry in the official record of his people. He wanted future generations to understand what had happened when the Velthari faced extinction and sent their desperate plea into the void. "We called out to the universe for salvation," he wrote, "not knowing that our cry would reach the children of a world so harsh that it forged beings of impossible strength and infinite compassion.